Good morning, guys. So I am so excited because we are visiting Australia with Globe Scott Trot. So it says, Merry Christmas, mate. I'm in the land down under visiting my friend Kylie. It's hot here. Christmas in Australia happens during the summer. We're at the beach for a little Christmas barbecue. So that's very different from here. A lot of times that it might be really cold and it could even snow here on Christmas, but there they hang out at the beach. And she says, This is the Australian flag. And it says, Tonight we are going to go sing carols at the Sydney Opera House. And if you remember when we talked about the continents, Australia is a continent and it's a country. And our little mystery bag we pulled out, I had a little replica, a little statue that looked like the Sydney Opera House because it's very famous there. And it says, You won't find evergreen trees in Australia. Instead, you'll see Christmas bush, a pretty tree with red flowers. So they don't have those evergreens like we do that we make into Christmas trees. They use these trees that have these big red flowers. And it says, This is my friend Kylie. She lives in Sydney, Australia. We just finished making a sandman. He's really cool. So instead of making snowmen, they make sandman for Christmas. And they just say Merry Christmas because they speak English in Australia. All right, and these are just a little bit more facts, a couple more facts about Australia. It says Christmas in Australia happens during the summer. There are Christmas trees, candles, ornaments, and gift giving. On Christmas, Australians have a big barbecue on the beach or in their backyards. In Australia, Santa lets his reindeer rest and lets 6 white kangaroos pull his sleigh. So they believe that it is kangaroos that help pull Santa's sleigh. Isn't that interesting? And so today, the story that we're going to read that's going to go along with Australia on Christmas called Wombat Divine. And a wombat is an animal that is only in Australia. So they only live in Australia. It's one of those marsupials that we talked about. And this was written by Mim Fox and it's illustrated by Carrie Argent. And so while I'm reading this book, what your job is going to be is I want you to be looking for those animals from Australia, okay? Because we learned when we talked about the country of Australia, they have some very, very unique animals. So see if you can recognize some of those animals that maybe only live in Australia. Wombat Divine says it was the week before Christmas. Wombat loved Christmas. He loved the carols and the candle, the presents and the pudding, but most of all, he loved the nativity scene. For as long as he could remember, Wombat had wanted to be in the nativity. Now at last he was old enough to take part. So his heart was full of hope and his head was full of dreams. He hurried along to the auditions. And auditions is one of the vocabulary words that we talked about before. Remember an audition, when we talked about the dancers, is when you go try out for a part. And look at the landscape here. You can tell that it's warm right now where we're at. You can see that there's still green leaves on the trees, which around here it wouldn't be like that. His friends were already there. Emu was bossing and fussing as usual. Now let's get started, she said. Who'd like to be the Archangel Gabriel? I would, said Wombat. So I already see one animal that's unique to Australia. What do we see? That's right, we see the emu. But he was too heavy to be the Archangel Gabriel. You can see all of them trying to lift him up. Bilby was chosen instead. You see the bilby right here? That's another animal that is unique only to Australia. Bilby patted Wombat on his back. Never mind, Wombat, don't lose heart. Why not try for a different part? What a good idea, said Emu. Who'd like to try to be Mary? I would, said Wombat. Uh-oh. But he was too big to be Mary, so the other animals couldn't hold him up. Numbat was chosen instead. Numbat stroked Wombat's nose. There, Wombat, don't lose heart. Why not try for another part? Right, said Emu. Now, who'd like to be one of the 3 kings? So on this page, we see that Numbat. But he was too short to be a king. You can tell the kangaroos are much taller, and those are other animals that you can't find anywhere besides. The kangaroos were chosen instead. The kangaroos put their arms around Wombat. Cheer up, Wombat. Don't lose heart. Why not try for another part. Wombat tried everything. He wanted to be Joseph, but he was too sleepy. He wanted to be the innkeeper, but he was too clumsy, and he was too short-sighted. When they say that someone is short-sighted, it means they can't see very well, so he was running into. There were no parts left. Wombat hung his head and hoped he wouldn't cry. Suddenly, Bilby leaped into the air. I know, he shouted. You could be baby Jesus. Could I? Said Wombat. Could I really? Of course you could, Wombat, said Emu. Fancy my forgetting such an important part. A nativity without the baby Jesus is no nativity at all. Wombat was dizzy with pride. Christmas Eve arrived at last. Everyone was nervous except Wombat. He lay quiet and still throughout the whole performance. So he just got to kind of rest there. He even fell asleep just like a real baby would. Right here we can see some of those other animals. You can see, what do we have here? That's right, a koala. You can barely see, but you have the platypus right here. It's another animal we haven't talked about yet. On Christmas Day, when everybody was opening presents and eating pudding, they all agreed it has been the best nativity ever. You were divine, Wombat, said Emu. Divine means that you are really good. And Wombat beamed. So looking at the picture, we had that verb, beamed. What do you think it means when they say he beamed? That's right. That means when you beamed, you're really smiley and you're really happy because of everything that's happened. All right, so what you guys are going to do next is I want you to think about the story that we just read. And you guys are going to tell me some of the animals that we saw in it. So what you're going to do is you're going to connect to Seesaw, and I have a little sort. So if it was a character from this story that would have happened in Australia, you're going to put it in a box. And then if it was a character that did not come from this story and wasn't from Australia, you're going to put it in a different box, okay? All right, you guys did an awesome job. I'll see you later.